Hello, everyone. We are back again with another episode of our weekly podcast. We are the Football Tailgaters, and we go over hot topics in the NFL. As always, we have here Yams, who's a Jets fan, Andy, who's an unbiased fan, and I'm Aaron, the Cowboys fan in this group, the depressed Cowboys fan, I should say. Before we jump into our topics here, we're going to go over some, weekly biggest disappointment, weekly biggest surprise. Of course, we're going to talk about the Cowboys. We're going to talk about the 49ers too. And we'll also go over, again, the Patriots like we did last week, the Chiefs, and the Giants. And then lastly, we'll have fantasy updates and the week 6 picks. So let's start with our weekly biggest disappointment. What is that one for you guys?
For me, I think it's going to be it's the talk of the town, right? It's the Cowboys. That they prove that they're not the Super Bowl ready team that everyone has been talking them up all off season. As a matter of fact, they just showed how they're unprepared and they're not the team that everyone thinks they are. So they got owned by the 49ers.
I agree. I think we're all going to agree that the Cowboys is the biggest disappointment of this weekend. They, like I said before, they are pretenders. They went up against a team that is just really good, and they just got really hit in the mouth big time, destroyed.
I want to say specifically the biggest disappointment is the Cowboys defense. There's a lot to go over in that game, but specifically to me, what sticks out was the defense. It gave up over 400 yards. This is a team that's supposed to have a top 3 defense, right? And they definitely didn't show that. They were unprepared. And, there's a little bit of relationship with Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn. Goes back with the Falcons, right? But anyways, that's the biggest one by far, right? You don't give up 42 points when you want to consider yourself the best in the league when it comes to the defense. So that, for me, is the biggest disappointment. Now, what about your guys' week 5 biggest surprise?
My surprise is the Jaguars beating the Bills. A lot of folks were starting to say the Bills were about to get off to a hot start because they've won 3 in a row, and the Jags were 5 or 6 points underdogs to the Bills. So T-Law actually just proved why he's the number 1 pick in the draft.
For me, the biggest surprise is the Patriots being 1-4. Just a dynamic team that has been the best team of the NFL for 2 decades, and just how much they are struggling. And now they went back-to-back beatdowns, more than 30 points.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I like that one because we're seeing an insane 180 here from this team, especially with the highly regarded Bill Belichick. How do you go back-to-back games like that? Get destroyed. There's a lot of concern over there. So we'll see what they do, but we'll talk about that later because that's one of our topics. So let's go into our main talk now. So I don't want to start with the Cowboys just yet. I want to jump into the NFC East, but not the Cowboys, the New York Giants. Oh boy. The New York Giants lost against Miami Dolphins 31-16. It's pretty much a beatdown again. Daniel Jones again in that O-line. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. What's wrong with the Giants, guys?
Everything about the Giants is wrong. They have Daniel Jones is running for his life. The O-line doesn't work. Evan Neal is spiking at the fans. Now Daniel Jones is out because his neck is hurt, probably from running his around the field. So yeah, I blame the coach for not getting this team ready.
It's been many years that the Giants haven't been good, even at the end of Eli Manning's career. And they went from coach to coach, and finally they got a coach that brought this a little bit of a spark to this team. But unfortunately, this particular year, they just don't have enough players to just have some success. And everybody's blaming Daniel Jones, but I see the poor guy not having any time to throw or any plays to develop. They need better weapons. They can't just go by Saquon Barkley.
So, yeah, I agree. I'm going to jump on the whole Daniel Jones. It's not his fault, right? Because a lot of people are saying, wow, you pay this guy a lot of money for him to just get, not do good, not throw any touchdowns, throw interceptions, but he's getting sacked like 6-7 times. Didn't he get sacked like, I don't even know. I lost count. He has like a whole highlight reel of sacks, right? It's awful. And Evan Neal, what's going on there with that draft pick? What's going on with the coach of the year? What's going on there? Non-existent wide receivers. You're basically the face of the franchise is injured and has been injured constantly throughout the past years, right? It's a tough outing for these guys. And the only thing I think we can really say is like maybe the defensive line is pretty nice, right? They got that going for them. Aside from that, there's not much to it. There's a lot of dysfunction with that team. They got a lot to figure out. And you trade for a guy like Darren Waller. Where is he? Like, he finally showed up in week 5. Like, about time. You gave up assets for this guy. Like, you got to work around your strengths, and they're clearly not doing that. And I don't know how they're going to fix that problem with that O-line, because it's looking really awful for them. It's really, really bad.
I hope they flex that Sunday night. Is it Sunday night? No.
Yeah, it's Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
It's not going to be
pretty.
No,
that O-line can't hold a second.
Well, the NFL can change 2 Sunday night games from, I believe it's week 5 to week 10, and then up to their discretion right after that. So I think this should be an easy one to flex. There's so many games out there that is just way, way better than this one. What is going on with Evan Neal and just hurting the fans? I don't know if these players just sometimes just go into their heads that they're just above people sometimes just because of how much they're earning, how much money they're making. And they forget that the ones that are paying their salary is not just the owner. It's where's the money coming from? It's from the fans. The viewing of the television, the games, the people that go to those games to buy and pay the tickets. So it was just a huge cheap shot that if I was the Giants, I would really, really think hard to either trade him or cut him, because you have to do something for the fans. I'm sure the New York Giants fan base is extremely disappointed in this kid.
He was drafted in the same year as Tyler Smith, right? I think he was one of the ones that... Yeah, I think he went like top 10, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
I thought he was... Didn't he go
It was the one
2?
where it was in Vegas. And I remember we were kind of talking about when it came to the Cowboys, they were looking for an O-line. And it was either between Tyler Lindenbaum, I think, and... who was the other one?
He was pick number 7.
It wasn't Tyler Smith, but someone else.
Yeah, and the Vegas draft.
And that's when Thibodeau also was taken, no? Because they had like 2 picks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
I mean, he came from Alabama, so Alabama just does create good players and also offensive linemen. But in this case, it might be a flop. Yeah, it might be a flop here. No, which is sad because the Giants also, they did draft, I believe, an offensive lineman prior years, and it also just didn't work their way.
Their whole line is like first rounders, is it not?
It's just not crazy? Out. Yeah, didn't we talk this about off the show, that they've been drafting offensive linemen, the Giants, and just hasn't been working out.
Yeah, yep.
I believe they drafted
for quite a while.
Will Hernandez. That was one, and he lasted. He wasn't amazing. He wasn't that great, but he was, I guess, okay. But then there was another one. I don't know if it was Flores or I'm trying to remember. But they haven't been doing so well. It's just who was it?
Just historically, it's been a bad performance. I don't think I've ever seen them this bad. I have been following the NFL for 10 years, but since I've been following them, I don't think I've ever seen them this bad. Offensively.
Right. So 2022. So this past year they got John Schmitz, who's O-line. That was the 2nd round pick. And then last year they got Evan Neal, and it was in the 1st round, the 7th pick, 2 after Kayvon Thibodeau. And then 2021, they actually didn't draft anyone that's from the offensive line. It was actually in 2020 with Andrew Thomas, tackle, and then that was in the 1st round. 3rd round, they got a guy named Matt Pert, and the list just goes on.
I guess
Will Hernandez was 2018. He was a 2nd round pick.
He was 2nd round.
That's when Saquon got drafted.
And they didn't do so bad last year. They made the playoffs. So for them to be this bad as a fan, to go into the season with such optimism, right? Some high hope. And to see this performance that they bring up every Sunday, they're just getting blown out. It's what's going on here. The coach is not doing the right decisions and putting Daniel Jones in the right...
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
They went from extending this guy, Daniel Jones, paying him millions of dollars, right? Again, it's not his fault, really, because That O-line's awful. And then the coach of the year. And then they go to this kind of condition. Like, what? It's awful. It's really bad for them.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. They need to look into the scouting system or something, because that O-line's not holding up, and he got a neck injury because of it, because he's getting sacked after sacked after sacked.
Yeah,
and also like their trades, they haven't been doing so well. Like
Darren Waller.
I mean, he barely did something this week, but again, it's because the quarterback doesn't have any time to throw.
He has to run or get sacked.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the scheme that's not working. They're not adjusting their scheme based on how awful their O-line is.
Now, I mean, I could be very ignorant here, but the Raiders used Waller as a tight end to be kind of like a slash wide receiver. But I think what the Giants need is more protection. So they need like more tight ends, like bigger guys to just block for this guy, for Daniel Jones to be able to make some throws, or do some quick passes, something. Again, it just can't go just throughout Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah. And Saquon's been getting injured too because of that too. So
yeah,
it's not good for them. Let's shift on over to the Cowboys now, obviously. The biggest topic, right? And it was an awful showing for them, obviously. It was 10-42. The 49ers destroyed them completely. It was a non-existent team. You could argue that, hey, there was a high school team out there, right? And it was actually the first time that the Cowboys had their fully healthy O-line out there. So that's a point to make there, right? And they were pretty much set, right? Apart from the obvious injury, right, with Trayvon Diggs. He's out. You could argue that maybe they kind of missed him, but let's talk about this. What's wrong with the Cowboys?
I think it's an easy one. The offense stinks. They haven't been able to actually showcase or carry the team, because the defense in each and one of their games have carried the team and won the game for them. There is a weapon. You guys have weapons, right? You have Lamb, but I think you need another one. There's no creative calls on the offense. And I mentioned time after time is if you put the game on Dak Prescott to take care of things, you're going to end up losing that game.
I said before that the Cowboys are pretenders because we haven't seen offensively what they can do, and it seems like Mike McCarthy has an issue. They beat the Giants, which they're an awful team. They beat the Jets, which they couldn't find themselves offensively. They destroyed the Patriots, which they have one of the worst offenses as we have seen in the past couple of weeks. And now they went against a good team, which they just completely destroyed them. They couldn't do anything. Also, they saw against the Cardinals, a decent team, which everybody thought that they were bad, but now they just showing the true colors of what they are. They're just not a good team offensively.
There's clearly a lot of issues, and it's not just the offense. I think we saw something really bad. We saw them at their weakest. I think this is going to be the weakest they're going to be. This is the worst they're going to be this season. And for plenty of reasons, right? And you could maybe start looking at, again, the players themselves. What's going on with the coaching staff that they can't prepare these guys enough, or like whatever's going on, right? The offense is a whole other thing where you're talking about what they're scheming up, right? Because we go all the way back to the OTAs, right? When McCarthy was kind of talking up this new scheme called like the Texas Coast, which is, if I'm not wrong, trying to adapt to Dak's language, right? So whatever, just basically getting the offensive game to Dak's hands and playing by his strengths. And that's with like the West Coast scheme, which is like, short throws, whatever, and stuff like that. And then occasionally maybe throw it like deep bombs, because he was doing that. Now, here's the issue. Dak doesn't have a strong arm. He doesn't have a strong arm like Josh Allen. And it seems like right now he seems to be regressing. So that's one point. I think Dak right now is regressing. I think the offensive scheme is not working. And in some cases, I was seeing some people say like, hey, do you miss Kellen Moore now? I don't know. Like, I think it would have been awful in a different way. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think it would have helped, though. I don't think they miss Kellen Moore, and I don't think they need him.
Yeah, even with Kellen Moore, did the Cowboys have a red zone problem?
No, the past 2 years they had Kellen Moore against the 49ers, and they had Zeke line up at center alone.
Well, okay,
that was Kellen Moore. So that's not the case. It's not the case. So I'm ruling out Kellen Moore as being the issue. I'm kind of pointing the finger towards Mike McCarthy as one of the culprits here. Dak Prescott is definitely on my list right now because what I just saw from that game is just the worst thing in the world. 3 interceptions. You can't do that. You cannot do that. He's been kind of inaccurate, even though he's had 1 interception before this game. He had 1 interception before this game, and he came in here and threw 3 against a really competent defense. Now you could say they played against the Jets defense. Okay, well they were kind of it was the beginning of the season. They were figuring things out, so it's kind of murky. But whenever you're mid-season form, that's when you start to develop some clear strengths and weaknesses. That was the worst time to lose.
If you put Dak Prescott on the 49ers, he'll have success. The problem
because of that coaching staff.
Yeah, it's that coaching staff, and that's like the biggest difference that I see. So the Cowboys have like a big issue here. One, you have a great point. The Dak Prescott is regressing. We are not seeing that type of quarterback that when he just started as a rookie season, throwing on the run, just using his legs and just being extremely more accurate than he is right now. And now we're seeing him against really good teams and just having a big time struggle. But the Dallas Cowboys, the Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones are not putting him in the best place to succeed. He is not an amazing quarterback. He needs a lot of help. They need more weapons on offense and take the ball away from his hands all the time.
He's not Tom Brady.
So now that you mention it, because all right, let's just put it talent-wise. Just put the talent in perspective. When you look at the 49ers offense versus the Cowboys offense, which one do you want? Which one would you rather surround yourself around if you're the quarterback?
Of course, the 49ers.
Easily. They got Deebo Samuel, Kittle. They got McCaffrey, arguably the best running back. And, a lot of people are saying he's going to be MVP for this year. They got Ayuk. And then that offensive line is great. Where was the defensive line for the Cowboys? They're running all over them.
I'm going to disagree with you. They weren't running all over them. The Cowboys defensive line knew what they had to do, which everybody knew what they had to do, which was to stop Christian McCaffrey. They held Christian McCaffrey for like 51, 52 yards. That is.
And what about
that's the
Christian
lowest that
McCaffrey wasn't the only one running.
No, I understand that, but he's their biggest weapon, and that's what the Cowboys did. They took out their biggest weapon, even though he did score a touchdown.
And then Kittle had 3 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, no, that's the secondary. That's a different part. But the D-line did their end.
And then Ayuk was exposing the secondary completely, which opened up the running game. So you just get destroyed all around. So it was like this collateral damage that I'm saying that was just awful for the defense.
They weren't prepared. They weren't prepared.
That's the main point. That's like the number one thing of what was going on. It was Arizona 2.0 here. They were not prepared. Why are they not getting prepared? What is going on that they're not getting prepared?
Don't you think
they don't have enough talent?
It's not the talent problem. It's not the talent problem. We were saying that he was there. Like that defense is one of the top defenses easily. Even when they lost Trayvon Diggs, they were still a top defense.
Well, now they had some bad news today. They, I believe, cornerback Goodwin is going to be out, and now Leighton Vander Esch, their linebacker, is going to be on injured reserve. Trayvon Diggs is out for the season, so they're having some secondary problems. So it is going to be really hard. Now the 49ers, I mean, if they stay healthy, yeah, for sure, they're going to be the best team. I consider them the best team of the NFL, but right now it's just the offensive scheme. And it seems like Dak Prescott against the 49ers, I don't know if it's like he's getting scared or what's going on, because he just plays like a really awful game compared to his other games. There's something really awkward when it happens to him. And I think it's like PTSD that he's lost against the 49ers for 2 straight playoff games, finishing the Cowboys season. And here they come up in the season, which maybe, and this is a big maybe, if they see him again in the playoffs, it's just going to be worse.
But it's not just Dak Prescott. It's the play calling. I put this a lot on Mike McCarthy too. I also put this a lot on Dallas defense under Dan Quinn. Obviously, they have history. He was the head coach where Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. So those two have history. Obviously, we know who dominates who now, right? Because it's like 3 meetings now with Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn.
Well, the defense did their job in the playoffs. Especially on the last one, they only
in the playoffs. But now Kellen Moore is gone. Now you have McCarthy, which has gotten worse.
Yeah.
So, Aaron is right. The blame doesn't fall on Kellen Moore. They looked better with him than without him.
It's pretty arguable. That's why there was conversations online about like, hey, look, what if they needed Kellen Moore there? Well, like, would that maybe help? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I personally don't think so. It might have been a different way, maybe. But I think Kellen Moore's potential is better than Mike McCarthy's, but
because it's
just
a
the
newer,
way.
it's a young mentality for this new NFL.
This franchise built the team around Dak Prescott, and it's not working out, and that's the truth. They've gathered these players on the offense, to help Dak Prescott specifically, to help him win. How do you get Cooks, who has 1,000 yards in like pretty much all of his seasons, and he's just running around there, and he's just running around, and then whenever there is an opportunity, and that guy's quick, whenever there is an opportunity, Dak launches it, and it's just an awkward throw. It's bad. It's inaccurate. It's towards the outside. There's that one deep throw that
got intercepted.
It was that one. Yeah. No, two of them. There's one that led Cooks out of bounds, and the other one that was overthrown. Dak doesn't have the arm. No,
I think it's also something that has to do against the 49ers. Like, he just doesn't know where to throw it, and he just chucks it, and hopefully something miraculously happens.
Not all the people were open though. Like, yeah, you're right. He just chucked it up there. Where we're down 20 points,
and that's not his strength.
You're supposed to be a veteran. He's been here for 7 years now, so he should be able to. If the defense is giving you something, do an audible, do a check down, do something, because if you don't have that much time, like, stop trying to force things to happen. You should be able to do this. But if he's not, and you're as a head coach, Mike McCarthy, if you can see that your quarterback is not capable of doing audibles and doing some changes, then you have to put him in the best position to succeed. And it looks like for years and years and years, it's still the same thing. Now, I do have one prediction, and I'll just end my spiel here. They're going to go up against the Chargers next Monday Night Football. If they lose against the Chargers, they have the bye week the following week. I believe Jerry Jones, because again, father time is ticking, that he'll do a big trade.
Father time?
Yeah, he's older.
Oh.
Time is ticking, so he's going to be doing a huge trade for somebody. And just, it can be as big as Devontae Adams if the Raiders keep losing. So just watch and you'll see.
Stop trying to make Devontae Adams. It's not going to happen.
I'm saying it could be him or somebody huge like that. Because we're getting closer to in the season that you can see that there's teams like, that they're not going to be able to have it, and they need to start thinking about getting some first round picks for next draft.
I have to say something is the fact that the Cowboys are so hyped up every freaking year that everyone thinks, I don't know about you, Andy, I'm biased over here, but everyone says they're going to the Super Bowl, right? And everyone thinks they're going to hang in there with the top teams in the NFL. And then when it doesn't happen and then the Cowboys get their butts kicked on national TV, it's like, what happened to the Cowboys? It's because they're always hyped up so much that you come back and are so disappointed. It's better just to pretend that they're not an NFL caliber Super Bowl team, and you will be much happier in life.
Boom.
Well, you're saying everyone, but that's such an overgeneralization of it, because it's literally only the really, not even the media, because the media just wants to eat up the attention from those loud fans.
Well, then
because those loud fans, again, this fan base is one of the biggest.
And they're
consuming that media.
But those loud,
so they have to feed to them.
Fans
and then you
are being heartbroken because they're just soaking it all in and they believe in it.
Well, I'm just gonna say a lot of the media, the mainstream media, the big ones that a lot of people watch, they don't really harp on these guys that much. You might see them like kind of be the reasonable ones are the ones that aren't watched as much, and those are the ones before or after the mainstream shows that show up. And that's all I'm saying, because the mainstream shows that show up, they usually like to poke fun at it or whatever it is, right? But the ones that aren't watched as much are the ones that are kind of reasonable. And whenever you see someone reasonably talk about the Cowboys, it's kind of refreshing rather than just saying like, oh, it's always the same thing, whatever, because it's the same story. I don't eat up any of the hype. I don't eat up any of that. It's just all bloated. It's all bloated, I should say. It's all bloated. And it always will be because that team is too big when it comes to the fan base. And it's that simple. And it'll always be like that because the owner built it up like that. Jerry Jones built it up like that. And now, look, it is what it is. So it's a struggle. I also want to point out, I think it would have been fun. I think Tony Romo would have done great against them. I was so depressed from that game that I was like, what would have happened if Tony Romo had this team currently? I think that's like a whole new can of worms.
If like prime time Tony Romo, like without
injuries like
stuff?
before the injuries. I think he had a better shot than what Dak was able to do. But then again, Mike McCarthy, what he's doing with that offense is not working out. And he just kind of gave the keys to Dak Prescott. He's very open with him. He's like, all right, I'm going to suit to what you like and whatever it is. And it's not working out. And those plays are very frustrating to watch. So I don't know. Maybe it just takes
Tony
a little bit.
Beat the 49ers when they went to the Super Bowl in that overtime game. I do remember that. And with a broken ribs and a punctured lung in that particular game. So yeah, they would have probably had a good shot.
Something that was just, kind of, I was over it.
Well,
so.
You guys are talking about like fans and delusions and stuff like that. Sometimes as fans, it's so easy to just try to like press the panic button and like it's over. It's done.
No, it's not over. And this is what I'm saying.
No, I know that you're not saying that it's over. I'm just saying in general, if you look at the media, right? Because all the fans look at the media, they look at Twitter and everything, and everybody's just like, the Cowboys is just know who they are to be. I've been saying this since the beginning. Even though they've been winning, I've been saying no, they haven't shown me anything. But and other teams, sometimes you lose sight of how hard it is to find quarterbacks. So when people say, well, you got to move on from Dak Prescott, it's not that easy because now look at how many teams are out there trying to find a quarterback, trying to replace what they have. I mean, they go from, and then they get veterans from here, from backups from here, like the Cam Newtons, the Baker Mayfields, the Sam Darnolds, Kirk Cousins. I can name a name because it's just really hard to find a big time franchise quarterback. So I know Dak Prescott's contract is coming up. You do have a big decision to make. It's just really frustrating that I believe in this case it's not putting him in the best position to win. So I would still stick with Dak.
Tank for Caleb.
Even if you tank for Caleb,
you can't. There's a lot.
You're gonna have a lot of competition trying to get Caleb Williams.
It's impossible.
It's gonna be extremely hard. And the other quarterbacks, who knows if they're good? We just saw a draft which had Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. Am I missing anybody? Oh, Trey Lance. Did I say Trey Lance?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. It was like 5 quarterbacks, and we're only seeing one that is capable of being a franchise quarterback, which is Trevor Lawrence. It's really hard. So I do think that fans lose sight, and then they get even more sadder because you wait for the season to come up, then your team doesn't do well, and it's why? Because you don't have a quarterback. You can't even compete. So
it's really hard. Luck when it comes to the quarterback position and like getting your guy. I think it's at this point almost straight up luck because it's really hard. Like right now from the rookies, it's really early to tell, but like there's only one guy that's really sticking out to me. So, but we have to see with those.
CJ?
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
and it's too early,
and it's too early, and it's too early to tell because you gotta wait to see if they're, if it's just a one hit wonder, 1 year and then they're not as good, or maybe they hit the ceiling. I don't know. I mean, at some point there was like a little bit of doubt of like what was going on with Trevor Lawrence, but that's a whole other thing.
Everybody thought RG3 was gonna be like spectacular.
Yeah,
and just because he had that 1 year,
one great year,
exactly.
It's tough. Let's shift on over to the 49ers. I want to go over them. So, obviously, Brock Purdy had a great game. He had 4 touchdowns. And McCaffrey, he was held up, right? But then also the rest of the guys also kind of ate. Deebo Samuel even had some carries. And then the backup of McCaffrey, what's his name? Mason, I think? Or something like that. Either way, I mean, Kittle, 3 touchdowns. Everyone was feasting. The 49ers are undefeated right now currently. Aside from the Eagles, are the 49ers the best team in the NFL?
I believe so. They have special teams, they have offense, they have defense, and they have a quarterback that just protects the ball. He doesn't look timid. he can be maybe the future Joe Montana for the 49ers. And I know I'm speaking too soon and I might be at a lot of backlash, but this kid is just puts the ball where it needs to be in the exact moment, and it's a really good 49ers team.
Yeah, I can't pinpoint anyone right now who can be better than the 49ers. And even if I look at the schedule, I don't see any incoming threat for the 49ers. There's no team that I can see that can rattle Brock Purdy. He has a great offensive line. The only time we kind of talked this off the show too was the Eagles, right? And, he went out with an injury. But I haven't seen this kid been rattled. We have to see a team really put him timid, if you will.
They're easily the best team right now, and I think they can absolutely have a good day against the Eagles, who has a pretty weak secondary. Their defensive line is where it's at, so that would be something to really watch if it ever comes down to. I don't think they're facing each other
They do.
in the regular season. They do?
Yeah.
When is that?
December 3rd.
Well, is that like? It's got to be okay. Well, that's gonna be something to watch, and until then, they're the best team. They got everything and anything, including the coaching staff. I think they have to get out coached to get beaten.
And I don't see anyone in the schedule that will be able to outcoach Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, it's gonna be just the rematch of the NFC Championship last year, and who knows? Even if Brock Purdy didn't get injured, and I know everybody usually says this, maybe the 49ers would have won that game. But
the 49ers would have won that game.
Yeah, we don't know if Brock Purdy didn't get injured.
The Browns next. They got the Vikings, Bengals. Those are the next 3 games. But what I'm seeing from what it sticks out to me, I think maybe
Pete Carroll.
Maybe Pete Carroll, the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean
it is a divisional game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a divisional game. I mean, they'll probably give them a rough time for sure, but I think they'll win both of them.
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter how, but they'll win.
I don't know, but because Pete Carroll, I have a lot of respect for Pete Carroll, and that defense, each season is just getting better and better. So it can be a pretty good game. I think the 49ers might lose one of those games.
It might be, because it has to be, like you said, be outcoached. And I think from all these teams that they face, besides the Eagles, the smartest coach that they're going to face is Pete Carroll.
Their schedule looks pretty easy.
It does.
It looks pretty easy.
And I would have said
Pete Carroll is the best one on that schedule.
Cleveland has a good defense, but I don't know what's going on with Cleveland and Deshaun Watson. Supposedly last game before they had the bye week, they cleared medical staff cleared Deshaun Watson to play, and he decided not to. And the coaches even backed them up, saying, no, we just decided to keep him out.
I don't know. Maybe they want to play cautious with him.
Did they win?
Who, the Cleveland Browns? I believe they didn't. No, they got destroyed, actually.
Yeah, against the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
When they played the backup, who in the preseason seemed pretty good. Offensively, though, against the 49ers, if we're talking about defense, it's because, oh, man. It would have to be the Eagles or Seahawks that I think have a really good, you can really tell that they definitely have a good chance to beat them. I don't know about the Bengals, because they just barely had their comeback game, right? Where they finally have life again, and that's coming up in 3 weeks.
I don't think the Bengals have that defense to really rock Purdy. But the Bengals are kind of the team that gets hot later in the year, so
we'll see, because
maybe
in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
It could be. Last game, they looked like they were getting back in the groove against the Rams, so it could be.
And is this a Thursday night, the 29th?
No, it's 2:25 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Or 3:25 p.m. It's a Sunday.
What was that? It's because they have Monday night against the Vikings.
Oh gosh.
Monday night against the Vikings, and then right after the Vikings, it's the Bengals Sunday. Not Sunday night, just regular afternoon game. Anyways.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe, who knows? It's really hard to go undefeated. But this is probably their best shot to go undefeated right now. And you can argue that the Rams in Seattle will give them a good fight. Maybe even Arizona. Maybe. Because I don't know if Kyler Murray's coming back at some point, right? Like later in the season, in the second half. I'm not sure what's going on over there. But it would be the division rivals or a team like the Eagles, which is pretty much, I think, the only ones outside of the division that can give them a fight.
Yeah, unless the 49ers experience some kind of injury on the team, like CMC goes out, or they lose Kittle, or one of their dynamic weapons, right? Because they have Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Debo, CMC, they have all those working in their favor.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. All right, so let's go over the AFC now. We got in the AFC East, the New England Patriots, who back-to-back weeks have gotten destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. So there's a lot of question marks, but let's ask this question. Should Mac Jones be benched?
No. Who are they going to go to? Bailey Zappi? I don't know if he's any better. He needs help. Mac Jones needs help, and it's not fair to put it all on him. And Bill Belichick has, I guess, been ignoring the offensive side of the ball since Tom Brady left, or the fact that he was able to get by with mediocre talent and Tom Brady. It's not the same case anymore. You need to put weapons for your mediocre quarterback like Mac Jones.
Yeah, I agree that Mac Jones shouldn't be benched. It seems like the offense is just not clicking. And the thing for me is that Bill Belichick is not embracing the new type of NFL that there is. You ask Bill Belichick historically about how the history is in the football, he probably knows like tons of decades of football. But right now we live in a different type of NFL that was back then, and he needs a humongous, tremendous quarterback to put the ball where it needs to be, which he had for so many years with Tom Brady. But now you have Mac Jones, and it's just not working. And I do think that he did try to go into this new type of NFL, and that's why he got Cam Newton, but it didn't work. So he just went back to the way that he thinks he knows football, but unfortunately, it's not helping him.
Yeah, he's going to have to start adapting because it's not looking pretty. And you don't have much options, like Yam said, when it comes to just benching Mac Jones. Like, you got Bailey Zappi, and I forget who the third one is. But you you got to figure it out. It's gotta be a situation for Bill Belichick where he's got to look at himself in the mirror and realize, like, hey, I got to change some stuff for this team because it's not working out. The running game's disgusting. The defense is probably the best part about this team. And what can they do to fix this? There's a lot of things that you can do to fix it. You did have opportunities in the offseason, like the one that sticks out to me is when they almost had Hopkins. Maybe that could have helped, but we would never know because he didn't go there. So trying to get some big time players maybe could help out for them, but you got to start thinking, like, how can I help Mac Jones in a different way than what he's currently doing right now, which is not working. He's got to figure something out quickly because there's going to be some tension, I think, within that organization. Now, I don't know how much patience. I assume he has a lot of patience, Robert Kraft, with Belichick, right? How much are you willing to wait, or how long are you willing to wait to turn this team around and finally get something rolling? Because as it's looking right now, I don't think this team is going to do any good soon.
I bet you a lot of fans out there are just happy that the Patriots are just having so much struggles from 20 years of having amazing success, and now so much struggle. So I mean, come back to reality, and this is how it is. Bill Belichick, he's a master in defense, and now his two best defensive players, Judon and Christian, I believe.
Christian
Gonzalez, they're out, and now he's having just struggle after struggle. So we'll see. I don't see him being let go anytime soon, though.
No, but Belichick, the GM, Belichick is getting in the way of head coach Belichick, so he needs to separate those two and really focus on the offense.
All right, so now the Chiefs. Let's talk about the Chiefs. There's some controversy going around about the refs and the Chiefs. So, it's been argued, and it's not even this season, even some could say the past season. But this last game, there was a moment in the game, I forget the player, but a Chiefs player took off his helmet after a play, going at the refs, having his helmet off and trying to talk to the ref, and it seemed like the ref told him to put his helmet back on, giving him a chance without flagging him, because it's a flag if he takes off his helmet on the field. So he didn't get flagged for that. And also, if I'm not wrong, the flag on that play had nothing to do with the Chiefs. I think they just called no flag, even though it could have been, I think it was interference. It was pass interference. What is going on? So are the refs helping the Chiefs on purpose?
Absolutely. And it started with the more obvious call against the Jets when they called Sauce Gardner for it, but they don't call it against the Chiefs. And not only that, yeah, the flag was thrown. They picked it up. And on top of that, the Chiefs player takes off his hat, which is an automatic flag. I say yes, it's a little suspicious, and it seems like they're just throwing it in our face, like if we don't notice. That's my opinion.
It does seem that the refs are helping the Chiefs, just because we saw it like 2 weeks happening coincidentally. We saw it against the Jets with the holding call that was not hold, and for the Patrick Mahomes run, and also I guess it was type of a hold, I guess, for the pass interference for the cornerback for the Jets. And now in this one, we had, like you were saying, Aaron, we had a player take off his helmet and the ref telling him to put it back. And you can say that in another game, there would have been a flag just because he took off his helmet. And then there was another a catch that wasn't a catch, and for some reason they didn't allow to review it. And even though it was like completely out of bounds, that even the announcers were like very questioning, like what just happened. But they just go game on. So it is really strange what's happening. It could be, but I mean, unfortunately, we'll never know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we won't know. And this is not the only place where we see it. The Chiefs aren't the only guys getting helped out here. This is a whole league problem with the inconsistency of these guys. And again, it's been showed that these guys, they have lives. They have other things going on. They're not full-time referees, and that's a problem. They need to, I guess, make it more strict for them when it comes to the training. Do something that changes the consistency of the calls. We've mentioned this, Andy mentioned this last podcast. If you're going to call it aggressively, call these penalties aggressively, stick to that. If you're going to be loose about it, stick to that. But you got to be consistent. And that's the problem. We're not seeing this across all games. And I guarantee you that, because we don't have a lot of eyes, basically. You gotta really watch the whole game and see what happens. We're not watching all the games all the time. I guarantee you this happens a lot more than we think it does, because we only watch a certain amount of games. Now, only certain one sticks out to us because, again, the Chiefs have been very successful. They got a dynasty going on here, right? They've had a lot of success in the past. It was the same thing with the Patriots years ago. It's just going to cycle through whenever a team has a lot of media, national media attention. It's going to be the same thing again. And there's going to be a lot of scrutiny against these refs whenever there's something suspicious that goes on that helps win these teams that have had a lot of success in the past years. So it's nothing new to me. And again, yeah, Andy said it. We won't really know. So,
but you do know there. You have NFL players speaking out against it. Did you not see that Tyreek Hill recently said that the Chiefs were saved by also hold in the Super Bowl against the Eagles? Tyreek Hill said it himself.
Yeah, but wasn't Tyreek Hill? I mean, he's a little bit biased.
He was already in Miami at this point.
Yeah, but he can be a little bit biased. But you're always going to have players to just speak out, but they don't really know. They can't for a fact say, yeah, it was on purpose. We're always going to have those types of calls. Football is that type of game. Unfortunately, that's the negatives of football.
I completely disagree.
No, and what about the Rams, the Rams and Saints game? The blatant pass interference call that was not called, which created the temporary rule, because it got taken off, of reviewing these plays.
Yeah.
It created a whole new rule, and it got taken off because it just slowed down the game way too much. And sometimes they would look at a call and they would still say it's not pass interference when it was.
And it would have been New Orleans to go to the Super Bowl. Exactly.
So
and also
it's
remember
always been a thing.
Yeah, the Cowboys against the Lions, and it was a playoffs that, I mean, it wasn't like at the end of the game, right? But there was a complete pass interference that the Cowboys did against the Lions, and the ref throws the flag, and then for some odd reason, and doesn't explain it well, he just picks up the flag and say, no foul, even though it was a huge pass interference. And you're like, what?
These guys are human beings, and we forget about that. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying that's just how it is. And how can you fix that as the league commissioner, right? That's why Roger Goodell gets a lot of hate for it, because the refereeing is not exactly the best. Yeah, how can you better that? And it's not easy. It's not easy.
I don't think, okay, I agree. They're all human beings, but I still think that these referees, they have favoritism in the league.
And it's,
I mean, yeah, they might, but it's not all the time.
But especially with veteran players such as Patrick Mahomes now, who is, what you can say,
Yeah,
replace
you
Tom
see this
Brady.
all across.
No, it's not.
You see this all across. You see this in the NBA, the way it's called. So, for example, in the NBA, let me just switch it up real quick. Whenever there's some new player that comes in, they don't get calls as much. Whenever, for example, like James Harden, right? Like we know he's like widely known for getting called a lot whenever he's trying to drive to the basket. I don't want to get too complicated or anything, but he get calls a lot that make him, that he gets free throws from it. He gets free throws from it, and because he's known already by the referees. Whenever a new player comes in, they got to figure out how that player works, his tendencies, how he does certain things. It's got to be. I feel like I can't put an exact specific player right now on like in the NFL, but I really don't doubt that that's how it is. Whenever maybe it was an offensive line, whenever they dig their hands inside the shoulder pads on the shoulders, and there's, I don't know who was doing that, but it wasn't getting called or whatever it is. It's just you see this all across. It's based on the players, and of course it is. You're gonna see more experienced people get maybe certain calls because they already know how they work.
The last thing that I'm gonna say about this is that I think there's something that because the NFL has the ability to make it more fair and just have wherever it is, New York, to just review the play, and that's what it is, right? But we have a huge business that we're not looking at when we're talking about the refs and the calls, and which is gambling, sports betting. And if you take the refs out of it and you just put New York like calling those plays, I think you would have more. It
would look so much more suspicious.
Exactly. And now here you can just blame, well, it's the refs, and it is what it is. So you can even go into litigation, into maybe suing, because why didn't you call it? It's like right there, everybody can see it. So it's just going to be, unfortunately, one of those things that the refs are just going to have to call it. And with football, I've said it before,
it's always been like
you can always throw a flag on every single play for holding, illegal contact, even for false starts. They make the little tiny move and it's a false start, but a lot of the plays, like, they do tiny moves and they don't call them, so it is what it is.
That's why you built these referees, and some stay in the league for a long time because they're good, others because, I don't know, there's just whatever it is, consistent in either good way or bad way, whatever it is. But they're in the league for that reason, and they stay there for a long time. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get a good referee. And I think it's better to keep it that way, to keep it to the human eye, because at least we have someone to point to.
I do think that the ball should have a microchip, though. Just to know where exactly the ball is. Because they get the ball and then they spot it. And they're like, did we spot it correctly? Well, we have to review.
Yeah, well, that's why they added the sideline cameras. And maybe eventually they'll get there. But the addition of the sideline cameras have definitely been a lot of help.
Yeah.
It's not an easy topic, and it's very complicated, and it can be frustrating as a fan, but I think it's just safer to just keep it as it is, because we'll never be satisfied. There's always going to be someone complaining. It's always going to be like that. So sometimes maybe that's why they just keep it that way.
Yeah. And just try not to put the game in the refs' hands.
Yep. And sometimes that's hard to do because it can really lead to some bad things. Again, like that New Orleans thing.
Yeah.
Let's move on to fantasy updates. So it'll be that, and then we got our week 6 picks. So fantasy updates.
Yeah, so for week 6 fantasy pickups, we have a little bit of a situation here with the Chicago Bears. All of their running backs are just basically out. So you have Rashawn Johnson that is available in many leagues, but he's in concussion protocol. If he is able to play, I would pick him up. But just in case, I would get Dante Foreman as well, because if Rashawn Johnson is out, then Dante Foreman's going to be your guy, and there's just going to be the heavy load for him. Next, we have the Cardinals running back Amari DeMarcado. Now that James Conner is out, he's going to be the leading running back. And of course, it always helps to have the leading running back for your fantasy, so I would try to pick him up in waivers. Tyjae Spears is a running back that's been getting better and better every week from the Titans. And since this is the last year for Henry and his contract with the Titans, I believe the Tennessee Titans are going to give Tyjae Spears more and more carries so they can see what this kid can do, and then they're going to move away from Derrick Henry after this season. And last, I have the wide receiver Josh Downs from the Colts. This kid has been getting a higher percentage of receptions, and with Richardson out, he built this bigger chemistry with Gardner Minshew, and I think that it could be that he's going to be his main wide receiver. Those are my picks for week 6.
Did you at any point mention Rashee Rice like in the past weeks?
I have not, and the reason is because the Chiefs' offense is very like up and down. Either one player is hot, and then the other week he's not. Like they were saying, Sky Moore. Get Sky Moore, and that guy is up and down and up and down. The running backs also, like I tend to stay away from the Chiefs.
Right. It's to me it was interesting because maybe I could see him being the most consistent out of the wide receivers from there.
Yeah, it could be.
And he has the most potential to me, but it's still to me it's too early to tell. No, yeah, I agree. I was just curious because I mean maybe if you're really desperate, he's not the worst option.
Right.
All right, so week 6 picks we got coming up. We still have some bye weeks. Of course, it started last week or this past week, whatever you want to call it. What are your picks for week 6, Andy?
Thursday night football, we have the Denver Broncos against the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, the Denver Broncos are just having so many issues. I believe Sean Payton and Russell Wilson don't have good chemistry, and the Chiefs are just going to roll over them in Thursday night. So I'm picking the Chiefs. The Seattle Seahawks against the Cincinnati Bengals. We saw the Cincinnati Bengals play a great game against the Rams. They look like their old selves. It's going to be a really hard game against the Seahawks since they are coming off of a bye week. So it's going to be a tough game. But for this particular game, I'm going to take the Seahawks just because they had 2 weeks to prepare and the Bengals are barely getting up their groove. The New England Patriots against the Raiders. We have Bill Belichick against his old offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. This is going to be a game for who is still continuing to be relevant in the NFL. So in this particular game, I'm taking the Raiders, and it's just because offensively, I have the Patriots could be as dead last in this NFL league. They can't do anything. And the Raiders, at least they have better weapons, because the Patriots, they have 0 weapons. So I'm taking the Raiders. Philadelphia Eagles against the New York Jets. Even though the Jets did get a win against Denver Broncos, they did have some trouble throughout the game until the end. They did need some help from their defense. So the Eagles, they just have a running quarterback with Jalen Hurts, and they have weapons that I believe the defense for the Jets is going to be really hard to contain. They're going to get exhausted, and I don't believe the Jets are going to be able to score as many points with this defense, so I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oof.
Monday Night Football, the Los Angeles Chargers against the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys just got stomped by the 49ers. Now they're going to play another team that is really good on offense, even though a lot of people don't have too much of a belief with the head coach. But I believe the Chargers are going to be able to come away with the win, having 2 weeks just coming off of their bye week to get prepared for the Dallas Cowboys. And now they have a bigger evidence of how to stomp on these Cowboys. So I'm going to take the Chargers for the win. That will be my week 6.
And Pittsburgh and Green Bay are on a bye week.
Pittsburgh and Green Bay.
Yeah. Did you mention it's going to be, I'm very worried about the O-line for the Jets. Yams, did you see anything about Becton? He came back after that injury at some point in that game, right?
Yeah, Becton is fine. It's Elijah
Vera-Tucker.
Thank you. Vera-Tucker. ABT
Vera-Tucker
is out with torn Achilles.
That's very scary because if you look at that roster that they have on that defensive line for the Eagles, that's very scary. And it's going to be, I really want to see Breece Hall, what he can do and what they can do to help him when it comes to scheming around this defensive line. And how are they going to do the whole passing game and stuff like that? How are they going to help Zach Wilson? They were able to help him against the Broncos, but that's the Broncos. No offense to some of the players over there, but as a team overall, that team sucks, trash.
Well, we have 2 undefeated teams. We have the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. So you are going against an undefeated team. It's
a lot of pressure, but they do have that momentum. And you've seen the Eagles. They were struggling at the beginning against the Rams. Yeah. And they struggled, even though it is division, they struggle against the Commanders. I give them a good shot to beat the Eagles. I do think the Eagles win, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is their first loss as a surprise.
Well, the Eagles are not the same team as they were last year. I think offensively,
they're weaker.
Yeah, offensively they are weaker. Defensively, I still think they're pretty good, but offensively, I think defensive coordinators have some tape on them on how to stop him. I believe Jalen Hurts is not as amazing as people have been saying last year. So there is ways to stop him. But the thing is with the Jets is that they need to score points like early. They can't be just going on 3 and outs and making the defense like just come back in, and they're going to get exhausted. And that's when they're going to be beaten by the end of the second quarter scoring points, and then the third and the fourth, and just the game could just slip away from them.
Also, Zach Wilson did play better, but he totally got bailed out by the defense.
For sure.
Completely.
100%.
Because he threw that one interception that was super costly, and I thought the game was over. But holy.
I thought the interception
they got away with one for sure.
It was a better play. Was it Surtain? Patrick Surtain, no.
Patrick Surtain.
He did a better play. I just think that
he's a good corner.
I don't know.
It was.
Yeah, he's good. He's good, but I felt like, I mean, they were describing it. The commentators were about how he should have thrown the ball, and to me, it just made more sense.
Yeah,
but you could argue that it was a good play that Surtain was able to do against Wilson.
But they also tell him to trust your receivers, and
yeah, but I believe Matt Ryan was the commentator. He was saying how exactly you should be throwing it. So,
but he's a quarterback.
He's a quarterback, yeah. So I believe in Matt Ryan and what he would say. But
yeah, exactly.
Zach Wilson, even though he is a quarterback, he's not an amazing quarterback. Yeah, he's inexperienced. So
I thought he played well.
Well, he has.
Yeah, no, he played good up until that interception, where it still shows that, hey, it's who he has been or who he has shown himself to be in the past.
Here's another lack of.
But he's getting there.
Another lack of experience is before the end of the second quarter, he threw a ball that was in bounds. The tight end got tackled, and they couldn't get 3 points. That's crucial.
Trying to clock the.
That's on him, and that's also on the coaches.
That's all. Yeah, but he's the one, and that's the same thing when I bring up with Dak Prescott. You're the guy that has the ball. Like, it's not.
This is what we talk about whenever. Who's the most valuable player on the team?
The quarterback.
The quarterback, but a quarterback that's trying to
Aaron
earn a
Rodgers
spot.
Aaron Rodgers is not going to do that.
Exactly, but Zach Wilson's trying to earn a spot in the NFL. So you as a coach, you have to tell him, hey, here are the scenarios. You have to do this, do that, and do that. Do not do that because we need to get 3 points. Aaron Rodgers.
Well, how do you know they're not telling him?
And we're treating Zach Wilson like if he has never played football ever in his life. I mean, in college and high school, even us, we are seeing games and we're like, you don't do that.
He got drafted high for a reason.
You don't do that. You
you don't do that.
You don't do that.
But he'll get to learn, and I feel like he should feel good about himself of what he did for most of the game. Aside from those 2 key plays where he threw that interception, which it's an experience, and where he should have clocked it, which is inexperience.
Well, he played good against the Chiefs.
And that's just something you learn.
He played good against the Chiefs. And now, if he played well against the Chiefs and that didn't rattle him, hopefully the Eagles don't rattle him and he plays well.
And we talked about this earlier. Yams and I were saying, I don't think they need to go out and reach out for a quarterback. I don't think they need a Cam Newton. I don't think they need anything. They need to stick to Zach Wilson because they can adapt to him. Yeah. And it's working out. Luckily, because they have a really good defense. Either way, I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. This is one of my games to watch for sure. Aside, obviously from the Cowboys.
Yeah, you're going to be rooting for the Jets big time.
You root for the Jets every weekend.
You got to see these guys lose.
Except for week 2 when we went up against the Cowboys.
Yeah, that was the only time. I told you that's the only time where I'm not going to root for the Jets. After that, I'm a Jets fan. Of course, after the Cowboys, right? I gotta respect it. Thank you guys who made it to the end. Anyone who made it to the end, very much. Thank you guys very much for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. This is the Football Tailgaters. Leave your opinion on our social media, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks again. We'll see you guys on the next one.